Here's the brutal truth most men never accept. Women don't chase men because they're the nicest, the most available, or the most loving. They chase the men who don't care. Not because they enjoy pain, but because indifference triggers something ancient inside the female mind. The need to feel uncertain again. When a man doesn't care, it doesn't mean he's cruel. It means he's centered. His emotions don't depend on her reactions. His attention isn't for sale. And that emotional independence, that quiet, effortless detachment, becomes the very thing that pulls her in. Because to the feminine, emotion is movement. And the man who doesn't move for her becomes the one she can't stop moving toward. You see, women live in a world full of validation. Compliments, attention, likes, messages. It's endless. Every man is chasing. Every man is available. Every man is proving. So when one man stands out by doing nothing, his silence becomes signal. It's not that he's rejecting her. It's that his energy refuses to orbit around hers. That shift confuses her ego and awakens her instincts. The more she senses he doesn't need her validation, the more valuable his validation becomes. And that's where the chase begins. Not for the man himself, but for the feeling of earning his attention. Because female desire is tied not to comfort, but to challenge. The harder she has to work for your emotional presence, the more invested she becomes in securing it. That's why the man who doesn't care isn't truly careless. He's calm. He's not indifferent. He's independent. And it's that independence that redefines his value. He's not trying to be wanted. He's becoming rare. And in a world full of noise, rarity is irresistible. But here's the irony. The same men who chase lose power because they give away mystery. And the same men who withdraw gain attraction because they create it. That's not manipulation. It's nature. The feminine is drawn to the masculine that feels complete without her, because only then does she feel safe enough to earn her place in his peace. So, if you've ever wondered why women chase men who don't seem to care, the answer isn't emotional cruelty. It's emotional contrast. They crave the feeling of being pulled into something steady, silent, and unbothered. Because deep down, the man who doesn't chase her attention becomes the one whose attention means everything. Before we start, a quick reminder. The real transformation doesn't happen on YouTube. It happens inside the community. If these videos have opened your eyes, what's inside will rebuild your mindset completely. It's not just a course, it's a brotherhood. A private space where men master attraction, emotional control, and the psychology of power. You don't join for a month, you join for life. Every future course, book, and lesson is yours forever. No subscriptions, no limits. Just one decision that changes your direction. If you're serious about growth, discipline, and purpose, click the link below. Join the community. Enroll once, grow forever. Let's dive in. Section 1. The psychology behind her chasing detachment. To understand why women chase men who don't care, you must first understand how the feminine mind connects emotion with value. In female psychology, emotion equals depth. Whatever makes her feel deeply, whether joy, mystery, or uncertainty, becomes important. And the man who doesn't care creates the strongest emotion of all, confusion. You see, most men give clarity too quickly. They reveal interest instantly, text immediately, validate constantly, and in doing so, they remove the emotional contrast that attraction needs to breathe. But the man who doesn't chase, the one who stays calm, indifferent, quietly focused on his own life, introduces uncertainty. And uncertainty is the seed of emotional intensity. It makes her wonder, think, replay, and analyze. It awakens the part of her that wants to earn clarity. When she senses a man who doesn't revolve around her, her ego feels challenged, not rejected, but decentered. She's no longer the focus. She's no longer in control of the dynamic. And that shift triggers pursuit, not out of strategy, but out of instinct. The feminine is drawn to the masculine that cannot be swayed. The energy she can't move is the energy she feels safest around, and paradoxically, the one she's most attracted to. This is why detachment is so powerful. It doesn't repel her, it tests her. It makes her wonder if she truly mattered or if she was just another moment in your path. And the more she wonders, the deeper her emotional investment grows. Because the feminine doesn't chase affection, she chases certainty. And the moment you stop offering it, her emotions start running after it. But here's the brutal truth. She doesn't actually want a man who doesn't care. She wants a man whose energy feels so complete that her presence doesn't define him. That kind of man gives off a different vibration, grounded, deliberate, unhurried. He moves through the world as if he already has everything he needs within himself. And that calm self-containment, that inner stillness, becomes magnetic. Women chase detachment not because they love rejection, but because they respect restraint. The man who doesn't react emotionally to her tests, her distance, or her moods communicates a silent truth. I am not seeking validation. I am seeking alignment. And that message hits deeper than any compliment ever could. Because in the end, she's not drawn to your indifference. She's drawn to your discipline, to your refusal to be emotionally available to everyone, to your ability to stay unmoved in a world obsessed with attention. That's what makes her chase. Not the absence of care, but the presence of control. Because in her heart, she knows, a man who can control his emotions can handle hers. Section 2. Why emotionally unavailable men seem more attractive. The irony of modern attraction is simple. The men women claim to want rarely ignite their deepest emotions. They say they want someone caring, attentive, emotionally available. But when they finally meet him, the man who texts first, who checks in, who listens, they start to feel less. Why? Because he's predictable. He's safe. He's available. And availability doesn't create emotion. It creates certainty. But the feminine mind doesn't bond through certainty. It bonds through feeling. The emotionally unavailable man awakens those feelings. Not because he's cruel, but because his energy carries something most men have lost. Mystery. He doesn't reveal everything. He doesn't respond instantly. He doesn't revolve around her. He exists as his own world, and she feels privileged just to orbit it. That distance, that emotional restraint, creates contrast. And contrast, not comfort, is what makes emotion addictive. You see, the feminine doesn't chase love. She chases emotion. The unknown, the unpredictable, the challenge. When she can't easily access a man's energy, her curiosity deepens. She starts interpreting silence as meaning. Every pause becomes a story. Every delay becomes a test. And the more she tries to understand him, the more emotionally attached she becomes, not because of connection, but because of contrast. The emotionally unavailable man triggers a primal response. His energy says, "You can't control me." And control is the currency of validation. When she can't control him, she can't predict him. When she can't predict him, she can't relax. And when she can't relax, she feels something. Alive. That emotional restlessness is what her mind misinterprets as attraction. But here's the truth. She doesn't actually want a man who withholds affection. She wants a man who doesn't need to give it constantly. Because a man who's selective with his attention makes it valuable. He's not emotionally absent. He's emotionally sovereign. His world doesn't shrink to fit inside hers, and that independence makes his presence feel sacred. It's not that she loves his distance, it's that she respects his focus. This is why Stoic men are magnetic. Their energy says, I care, but I'm not captured. Their stillness communicates value. Their restraint creates depth. Because in a generation drowning in overexposure, silence has become the new luxury. So when she finds a man who doesn't chase, who doesn't overshare, who doesn't overreact, she doesn't see absence. She feels authority. And that's why she chases. Not because he's emotionally unavailable, but because he's emotionally untouchable. She's not addicted to him. She's addicted to how he makes her feel, like she has something to earn. Section 3. The power of indifference. Why not caring creates desire. Indifference is often misunderstood. Most men think it means acting cold, pretending not to care, or playing emotional games. But true indifference, the kind that women chase, doesn't come from pretending. It comes from peace. You see, indifference is not the absence of emotion. It's the mastery of it. It's what happens when you stop trying to control how someone perceives you. When you no longer need their response to validate your worth. And that energy, calm, grounded, self-contained, is what women find irresistibly attractive. Because here's the truth. Women don't crave constant attention. They crave energy contrast. They want to feel that your focus is rare, that your presence isn't something they can demand. And indifference does exactly that. It separates you from the noise. It says, I'm here because I choose to be, not because I need to be. That kind of detachment carries an aura. It doesn't shout confidence, it radiates it. The man who doesn't care whether she stays or goes isn't careless, he's complete. He doesn't chase approval because his peace already fills the space that validation used to occupy. And that inner fullness makes his energy magnetic. In female psychology, indifference is powerful because it creates uncertainty. Not the kind that hurts, the kind that pulls. She can feel your attraction, but she can't own it. And that lack of control over your emotions draws her in. It makes her question, what is he thinking? Why isn't he reacting? What makes him so calm? Her mind starts chasing answers her ego can't find. And in that emotional tension, desire begins to build. That's the secret of Stoic energy. You attract not by chasing, but by centering. The more you lean into calm indifference, the more her emotions start orbiting your energy. Because women aren't drawn to men who want them. They're drawn to men who don't need them. And the line between those two is what separates the forgettable from the unforgettable. Indifference communicates one powerful truth. I value myself more than your approval. And that statement, spoken or not, is what makes her respect you. Because the feminine, at its core, seeks masculine leadership, not through dominance, but through direction. And when your direction doesn't waver, even when she withdraws or tests you, she realizes something she can't ignore. You can't be emotionally moved by her storms. That's when attraction becomes reverence. She stops trying to control you and starts trying to understand you. Your silence becomes a mystery. Your calm becomes her contrast. And your indifference, your lack of emotional dependence, becomes the one thing she can't find anywhere else. Because the truth is simple. Men who chase get attention. Men who don't care get devotion. Section 4. The feminine response to emotional control. When a man controls his emotions, the feminine feels something she rarely experiences: stability. And that stability doesn't calm her at first. It unsettles her. Because she's used to men reacting, raising their voice, over-explaining, competing for attention, losing their balance under emotional pressure. But when a man remains calm, when his eyes stay soft but his energy stays firm, she feels something deeper than attraction. She feels safe. It's not about dominance. It's about direction. Your emotional control becomes the silent frame her emotions can exist within. It allows her to feel, to express, to test, without breaking the structure that your masculine presence creates. That's why emotional control is so rare and so powerful. It doesn't suppress her emotions. It contains them. And containment to the feminine feels like trust. When you stay grounded while she's emotional, her body reads that calmness as leadership. Her nervous system relaxes, her guard lowers. Because for the first time, she doesn't have to carry the emotional weight of the connection. She can finally surrender it. That's what creates attachment. Not words, not promises, but energetic security. The truth is, a woman doesn't fall for the man who understands her emotions. She falls for the man who doesn't lose himself in them. She feels safe when she realizes your peace doesn't depend on her mood, because that tells her your strength is real. And every woman, whether she admits it or not, is subconsciously looking for that. The man who can feel everything yet remain unmoved. That's why emotional control makes her chase. Your restraint creates polarity. She feels the depth of your emotion, but she can't access all of it. That distance, that quiet discipline, makes her want to earn your full attention. Because women don't trust words. They trust consistency. And nothing says consistency louder than a man who refuses to be thrown off center. When she yells, tests, withdraws, and you stay calm, you're showing her something no one else could. That peace is stronger than passion. That silence can be louder than reaction. And that control is not a lack of feeling, it's the mastery of it. Most men think emotional control means indifference. It doesn't. It means you feel everything but express only what's necessary. You understand the storm, but you never become it. And that energy makes her feel what she's been missing, a man who leads through stillness. That's the feminine response to control. First confusion, then curiosity, and finally, devotion. Because when a man can master his emotions, he gives her what her soul craves most, the freedom to trust his calm more than her chaos. Section 5. When not caring becomes the ultimate power move, there's a moment every man reaches, the point where he's done over-explaining, over-giving, and over-proving. It's not bitterness, it's not revenge, it's realization. He finally sees that caring too much, in the wrong direction, drains his strength. And the moment he stops, truly stops, chasing approval, he becomes something rare, unavailable in a world addicted to validation. That's when not caring stops being rebellion and becomes power. You see, caring doesn't make you weak, but caring without boundaries does. Because when your care comes from fear, from wanting to be chosen, from needing to be seen, you hand your peace away, piece by piece. The masculine loses strength not through failure, but through attachment. And detachment, calm, grounded, silent detachment, is the correction. When you stop caring about her reaction, you reclaim your energy. When you stop explaining yourself, you reclaim your direction. And when you stop chasing understanding, you reclaim your authority. That's why women are drawn to men who seem to not care. Because those men represent something she subconsciously craves, freedom from emotional dependency. Your indifference doesn't offend her, it intrigues her. Because she can feel that your emotions serve you now, not her validation. Not caring isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's understanding what deserves your energy and what doesn't. It's choosing self-respect over approval. And that choice communicates a level of strength she can't manipulate or mirror. It's the calm of a man who's walked through emotional chaos and come out on the other side. Not harder, but heavier with wisdom. Every woman has tested men to find this exact strength. Most fail because they react. But the man who doesn't, the man who shrugs, smiles, and stays unmoved, leaves a mark she can't erase. Because he's not trying to win her anymore. He's already won himself. And that's the kind of man the feminine can't forget. When you don't care whether she stays or leaves, you become free. And that freedom creates attraction. Because freedom is magnetic. It's what every human being desires, but few ever master. The man who doesn't need anyone to validate him stands taller, speaks slower, and moves with purpose. His presence alone says, "I am enough." And that truth doesn't just silence noise, it shifts energy. So yes, not caring becomes the ultimate power move. Not because it controls others, but because it liberates you. It breaks every pattern of emotional dependence and rewrites the rules of value. She expected control through your care. But you mastered control through your calm. And once a woman feels that kind of energy, the strength of a man who doesn't chase, doesn't explain, and doesn't fold, she stops testing and starts respecting. Section 6. Why women feel safe around men who don't need them. At first, it sounds paradoxical. How can a woman feel safe around a man who doesn't need her? But that's the quiet truth hidden beneath female psychology. A woman feels safest when she senses that your emotional balance doesn't depend on her. When you don't need her validation, she feels something few men ever give her: freedom. Freedom from pressure, freedom from performance, freedom from being the source of your happiness. Because the man who needs nothing creates space for everything. You see, most men enter relationships trying to prove worth. They overgive, overtext, overexplain, hoping that effort will secure love. But that energy doesn't create safety. It creates tension. The woman feels the weight of his need. She senses his insecurity behind every compliment, his fear behind every gesture. And that fear turns affection into obligation. But when a man is complete, when his happiness, purpose, and peace are rooted within himself, his energy feels light. He's not trying to be impressive. He's not demanding constant reassurance. He's just present. And that presence is what makes her soften, because she knows, this man doesn't want to own me. He just wants to share space with me. That's why women are drawn to emotionally grounded men. They don't have to protect them. They don't have to fix them. They can finally relax. And in that relaxation, real feminine energy awakens. Her laughter becomes natural. Her affection becomes spontaneous. Her emotions flow freely. Because she no longer feels the need to manage his feelings, she can finally express her own. The man who doesn't need her gives her what every woman secretly craves: safety through stability, not through dominance, not through control, but through stillness. His energy says, "You can come and go, but my peace remains." And that unshakable calm tells her what words never could. He is his own anchor. That's the kind of energy a woman trusts. Because trust doesn't come from promises. It comes from consistency. The man who doesn't need her attention won't lose himself when she withdraws it. He won't crumble when she tests him. He won't chase when she pulls away. He simply observes, breathes, and holds his ground. And in that silence, she feels something deeper than attraction. She feels respect. She realizes this man doesn't seek to complete her. He inspires her to become complete herself. Because in the end, safety isn't about protection, it's about peace. And the man who doesn't need her gives her exactly that. The freedom to love without fear and the space to stay without pressure. He doesn't make her feel wanted. He makes her feel trusted. And that is where real connection begins. In the end, she didn't fall for your looks. She didn't fall for your charm. your words, or your promises. She fell for your peace, because in a world full of noise, men competing for attention, chasing validation, proving worth, you were silent, unmoved, present. And that presence felt different. It wasn't the kind of peace that comes from passivity. It was the kind that comes from mastery. You weren't trying to impress her. You weren't trying to convince her. You were simply being, and that being, that effortless stillness, became the most magnetic thing in the room. Because peace is rare, and what's rare, the feminine craves. When you stopped needing her to like you, to validate you, to choose you, she began to feel something she couldn't explain, a quiet pull toward your calm. Because your peace did what no words could, it stabilized her chaos. Your indifference wasn't rejection, it was invitation. An invitation to rise to your level of emotional discipline, to feel safe in your silence, to find meaning in your absence. That's why women chase men who don't care, because they don't actually want men who are careless. They want men who are centered, men who can feel deeply but stay grounded, men whose attention is not a reflex, but a reward. Your peace taught her something every woman eventually learns. That excitement fades, but energy endures. That passion burns, but presence anchors. That love is not found in words, but in balance. You showed her what no one else did. That peace is the highest form of power, and that the man who controls his emotions doesn't lose connection. He defines it. He doesn't chase what runs. He attracts what aligns. She'll remember that about you. Not your texts, not your tone, not your smile. She'll remember the silence, the way it didn't demand anything, the way it made her question everything, because true peace is unforgettable. Once a woman feels it, once she experiences the stillness of a man who cannot be moved by drama, neediness, or ego, she never forgets that vibration. She may meet louder men. She may meet richer men. But she'll never meet another man whose calm felt like home. And that's the truth behind her chase. She wasn't chasing you. She was chasing the feeling she lost when you left. The peace she once took for granted has now become the silence that echoes in her thoughts. Because in the end, you didn't have to prove you were special. Your peace already did. Remember, knowledge means nothing without action. If you're ready to rise above emotion and lead with purpose, join the community today at thestoiccouple.podia.com. Enroll once, grow forever.